Welcome to the Moto Moves podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to the Moto Moves podcast. It's your host Bianca, and today we have a special guest, Jenna Carlton, which is the founder of the Millennial Veteran. Many of you probably already follow her and know about her, but for those of you that don't, I'm going to let her jump in and introduce herself real quick. Hi, Jenna.
Hey, Bianca, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me on, especially because you're doing such important work, and I'm glad to be a part of the conversation. So yeah, like you said, I'm known as the Millennial Veteran. We also have a Facebook group called the Millennial Veterans, and I just love talking about struggles that we didn't realize that we would have when we got out, and so many of us have them, and just trying to normalize that transition phase of getting out of the service and inviting younger veterans to be a part of this great veteran community we have.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. When I started following you, actually your name, the Millennial Veteran, that's what caught my attention. And I was like, oh, okay. So I feel like it's more for like the younger generation, right? I feel like I don't know, that's what caught my attention. And so then when I started following you, I was just like, I love all the things that you talk about, like all your content, everything is so relatable. And it's like, sometimes it's just the little things, right? Like just the little posts that you make, like questions. It's just a little question that'll get you thinking, like, oh man, yeah, what was one of those things? Yeah. So I love that. I strive to be there someday, because it's thought provoking. Like it doesn't, um, I feel like for us veterans, like it's the little things that make us have deeper thoughts. You know what I mean? Because we're so engulfed in so many aspects of the military that I don't think we focus so much on the little things. And so when you ask such a simple question, it's like, it just takes you deep.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah, and the responses from them always surprise me at how thoughtful people can be and how much detail they're willing to share, even though
Yes.
and just even people like encouraging each other on the posts. I think that's so cool because when we're a part of something so deep into a culture like the military, and then we get out and we're trying to focus on the next thing, we forget those little things that we're probably carrying with us.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I love, and that'll like it'll suck me into, like I'll read the responses and stuff and I'm just like, oh, I didn't think about that one. Yeah, that's true. And so I mean, it's like a rabbit hole kind of, and then you want to read the next post and see what everybody else responded. And I don't know. I think that's awesome. I like it. I love it.
Oh, yes, yes. And I try to keep some of them are more heavy, obviously, but then some
Mhm.
of them are just like lighthearted, like how did you spice up food in the military? And
Yeah.
those are funny because like so many people say hot sauce, hot sauce. And
Yeah.
then yeah, it's
Hot,
try
hot
to
sauce
bring
is
that
always
comic
a thing.
relief too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Saved
that's
us.
awesome. I love it. So tell us a little bit about your service time.
Yeah, so I joined right out of high school. I really wanted to be Intel, and I got in trouble, so they bumped me down. Well, not bumped me down, but I still got an awesome job. I was able to do weather, and I went to A school in Air Force Base, which is really nice. And we were actually like we had to share Navy and Marines shared barracks on that base, so like I was introduced to Marines pretty early on, and met some like awesome female Marines and then I went to Norfolk and I was on an aircraft carrier doing weather, did a deployment and decided that weather was not my passion and I didn't think I could grow underneath the military. So I decided to get out.
Okay. And so what inspired you to start the Millennial Veteran?
So when I got out, I went through a very lonely, isolating period, even though my partner was still in.
Okay.
I felt like I wasn't a part of that world anymore. And then I was also pregnant. So I'd show up to school and like they would invite me to go out to drink. I'm like, no, I'm pregnant. So I had no clue where I belonged and just a hard transition. So I went to go pursue public policy and I did an internship in Washington, D.C. at the House Committee on Veterans Affairs. And I thought
Oh,
that was how I was going to make my change in the veteran community through policy. And quickly my dreams were crushed
oh,
because there's so much red tape when it
yes,
comes to policy, and sometimes you can't help every veteran through that. There's always going to be veterans that slip through the cracks. So I decided to start a Facebook group and my Instagram page, just trying to find younger veterans because I noticed that as well. There was no representation of younger veterans in our political system. So I wanted to find them and say, how are you guys dealing with this? What are you guys doing? And I found that so many were doing incredible things. So many had similar hardships. So I just wanted to share their stories.
that's awesome. Okay. And then how old were you when you got out of the service?
Yeah, I was 22, about to turn 23. So I felt so weird calling myself a veteran. I'm
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
young woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was super strange.
Okay. And so then you experienced also, I guess, being the spouse of a service member.
Yeah, yeah, we never actually gosh, we took like 5 years to get we had like a 5-year engagement, but eventually married, but yeah, like he was in for 2 or 3 years after me. So,
Okay.
and then watching him navigate it, I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you're going through the same thing I was. I
Yeah.
know what's going on."
Yeah, no, definitely. It's I think me and my husband we talk about that a lot. It's like everybody goes through the same thing, right? But no
Yeah.
one talks about it. I think we all, we're just like try to, I don't know, rough it out,
Right, right, and we don't like to ask for help as veterans. We'd rather
At
suffer
all.
in silence and try to
Yes.
figure it out on our own,
Mhm.
uh, when really we need to swallow our pride, and that's hard. It's hard for us, especially like yeah.
It's true because asking for help is a sign of weakness, right? Like that's what we're taught. Like you can't
Mhm.
get sick. Oh, because
No.
you get sick or you're hurt. Oh, you're already being categorized as the weak one or the
Mhm.
lazy one, right? And so that is instilled in you so deep. So, you don't want to you don't want to be vulnerable, right? So I think, yeah, we all get stuck in that same rut, I think, when we get out, trying to find our place.
Yeah, yeah, and it's such an inner battle, and honestly, that's the hardest time for, veterans. That's when we have the highest suicide rate is that first 12 months after. So it's, I wish they would have told me, or maybe they didn't even know who's they actually. I just wish I
Yeah.
would have known that
Yeah.
that I would go through this and everyone goes through this, and I just wish we could let people know, like, you're gonna go through this. It gets better. It sucks, but it gets better. That I think
True.
just even knowing that would help so many people.
I feel like, I think about this and I don't even know what it's like now, what are the courses that or the classes you take when you're oh my God, I'm at a loss for words today.
Oh, like TAPS
The
class?
TAPS classes, right? So I feel like TAPS classes should incorporate, I mean, I don't know if they do now, but I think they should incorporate like a group of us, like veterans that are trying to help the veteran community now to speak on that, because I know that for me, it was like, oh, that's gonna be hard. There, it's like generalized, right? Like, oh,
Right. And they
yeah,
kind of focus on finances. They focus on
yeah,
getting a job. That's what's going to be hard. They're not saying, "Oh, you're emotionally going to go through like a
yeah,
loss because you're losing a whole culture, community." And maybe that's just I don't yeah, but that would be
right?
so cool to bring in people who've gone through it and kind of explain that emotional transition you're going to go through.
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, and I know that Mm, I feel like maybe in that moment it's not, you know, military members getting out, it might not be as receptive because they're gonna think like because you're still in it, right? So you're gonna let your oh whatever, that's not gonna happen. Who cares? You know, I got it. It's just
Right, I'm gonna be the odd one who doesn't get
yes.
affected. Oh, I would have totally believed that. I would have
Yeah.
been like, "Yeah, that's for other people, but me, like, I'm so
Yeah.
mentally stable, not."
Yes, no. And so, but at least it's, the thought is put there. If we go there and
Right.
we have this discussion, and even if they're like, oh, that's whatever, that's crap, that's not me, who
Yep.
maybe for you, but not for me. But then in hindsight, the information is there, right? Like, oh, okay, now that, when they start feeling and falling into those, the feelings and the patterns. I'm breaking my desk, girl. Um, then they can kind of remember, I mean, the conversation was there. It's like planting a seed, I guess,
Yes.
you know?
Yep.
So I think that that should be something that we should try to implement. I say we because I include myself. I'm like, I have all these plans to make all these changes, but I don't even know where to start. Uh,
I know, and it's so hard. I actually applied for a job at TAPS, at the
oh, did
class that
you?
does that, and
Uh-huh.
they paid, like, I wanna say it was, like, $25 an hour. It was something ridiculously low,
Ridiculous.
like, I couldn't support my family of 5 with that, so I was
Yes.
like, "They should pay them more." I mean, they have so much in their hands, but maybe someday I can go back
I know.
or
No, I know. See, I think because they don't see the importance in that. They're just like, oh, they're just gonna go in there and talk them down. So 25 it is, but a lot of government jobs I think are underpaid. Like I've been trying to get a job too, like find a job in the VA or and
Okay, through the federal system?
yes. And I'm like, who it's kind of ridiculous. They're like, you know, um, doctorate required for like 78K a year. I'm like, who with a doctorate, like their doctorate, whatever, their loan is higher than, you know what I mean? Like,
Right, right. I will say one thing, just I am a GS employee, so I will say one thing, like, I started off as a GS7, rough year. I mean,
okay,
like, that's, like, maybe 49,000 a year, but each year you can go up. They really
true.
do have a lot of, movement up. That's the
Okay.
good thing. So,
I
it
just want to
sucks to
get
start
in.
out.
It's
It
hard.
sucks to
Yes.
start out,
Well,
but
the same
I'm
thing. I'm
glad I
like, I don't know if I can support my family on that, And so that's been the
yeah,
down. Like, if any other situation other than now, I'm like, oh, maybe that would have been realistic. But right now,
right.
it's hard, especially out here in California. It's hard times out here.
Yeah, and you can't take a year or honestly, it took me 3 years to build myself up to be
Yeah.
comfortable. Um, but yeah, it who
It-
I'm lucky, like, my husband was able to pick up and then but yeah, I feel you, it's hard.
yeah, no, it's hard, you have to find that balance, like, okay, I don't know. But yeah, I really would like to. That's my goal, to find a job within the system. I want to contribute more, I guess,
Yeah,
But
that'd be cool.
those are all plans that are out of my hands. Who
Right,
knows
right.
what will happen? But no, honestly, though, I do think that we need to incorporate other things in TAPS classes, to help us just adjust better.
Mhm,
Because at the end of the day, I feel like everybody has the same issues, adjusting, and acclimating to civilian life
mhm.
um, and sometimes it's too late, like and I think that's the hard thing to see. I mean, I've seen a lot of friends have a hard time adjusting and having to go through really, really rough patches,
Mhm,
alcoholism and losing their families, like families falling apart and things like that. So uh, I do think that it would be beneficial to kind of add that into the class, just like I said, to plant that seed just in case, at some point
yeah.
in your life, you're like, oh man, you know what? I feel like I'm there. I remember, I can reach out here, here, and here, or they spoke about this. Like maybe I should, you know, whatever, there's help, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Just one point being like, "Oh, that's what they were talking about," or
Mhm.
something, but I know also with that TAPS class, there's so much information being thrown at you that it is hard to remember that or to even pay attention to it all because you're like, "Okay, I've met my limit for the day. Nothing else they
Yeah.
say is gonna register."
Yeah, it's
So
like mental dump, right? It's too much to take at
mhm.
once. Yeah. No, I
Yeah,
get
totally.
that. Yeah. And then I saw that you created the veteran workbook.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the process for that?
Yeah, so like I said, we talked about I love asking questions and I journal a lot. That's what got me through a lot of my military time was writing things down. And then hang on one second, my clock is going off. Can you hear that?
No.
Okay, we're good. Um, so So yeah, like I love asking questions and I know a lot of people aren't don't like to journal because they're just like intimidated by that blank page. They're like, okay, I just wrote down what I ate for breakfast. Now what? And it's like, so I thought a fun way would be to just have a book full of questions. And that's really what it is. And it's all tied to things I talk about on my Instagram page, like identity crisis, finding your purpose, feeling lost, feeling like you don't have a community anymore. All asking questions about that to try to prompt the veteran to make change in their life and change
Mhm.
that makes sense to them because you're coming up with it, you're writing the answer for it. So, yeah.
And did you come up with all the questions yourself, or how did you guide yourself to create that?
So, I took one day and I just wrote down all these different themes, kind of taking from my posts. And then I took each theme and I was like, what would I want people to take from this little bit of information? So I just started writing questions around it and really tailoring it to the veteran experience. And also asking the questions. So it doesn't matter when you served, how long ago it's been, or how long you served. Like anyone can relate to these questions,
Okay.
male, female, anyone. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so typically before I have a guest, I always purchase the book or the content, whatever, so I can, and I didn't have the chance to do it this time.
Oh,
Like I
that's
told
okay.
you, life has been crazy. Um, but I really wanted to, and I've looked through, like the examples that you've shown on social media, and I've been on the link. So, like that's one of my plans. I want to order one, and honestly, I kind of want to order two. I want to order one for my husband too, so we can kind of do it together.
Oh,
Um,
that'd be awesome.
yeah. And I mean, we've been out for like ever, but I just feel like it's never too late, right? To reflect. And like I was mentioning earlier to you, I feel like the questions that you ask are so thought-provoking, like it's such a simple question sometimes, but it'll take you so deep. And so
Right.
I just thought like it would be therapeutic. I think no matter what time you get out, how long it's been, like I think it would kind of it's helpful, right? Like a helpful tool. So that's my goal. I'm gonna tell you how it goes once we start it.
Yes. Yeah, and it doesn't matter how long it's been because I also post these on Facebook, and Facebook's usually like an older crowd, and I have
Yeah,
Korean, Vietnam veterans on there
that's
sharing their
cool.
stories, and,
Yeah.
they're a little more salty,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's funny how you can get them going, and also, like, so the workbook, I made it really, like, more structure-based, help people reincorporate that structure that you had in the military, but I'd like to do just, like, a book of like, a veteran reflection book with more of the, like, nuanced questions I have on the
Yeah.
page because I think that would be fun too.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yes. That engagement for sure. You can have people anonymously like send in their reflections. That would be fun.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
Ah, that would be just fun to, like, read on a
Yeah.
podcast or live and just talk
Yes.
about it
And
because
talk about it. Yeah.
yes, I
Yeah.
like to I go through and I read them, like, the boomer ones to my husband, and we just start laughing because each one of them, they start each comment with their the years they served. So they're like 1969 and 1979, and then they put their unit or like Air Force. It's just so funny how they they have to do that.
It's so different, right? But
It is
it's
so
funny.
different.
I mean, I even see that like when I go to the VA, and it's like you see like the older vets and the Vietnam vets and it's
Yes.
just their demeanor, everybody's demeanor is different, their demeanor, they walk in all grumpy, and they're just like,
Right.
and then there's some that are like super modal and they're like trying to talk to each other, and there's some that are like literally like, don't talk to me. I'm looking straight ahead.
Yep.
And then you see like the younger vets, I feel like they kind of all keep to themselves. Nobody really kind of talks to each other
Right.
just on their phone, like minding their. But I like to see the dynamic, and then I like to hear the people that do talk. I like to hear those conversations. And so it is so different the way we talk about our service time depending on the era.
Yeah. 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 It really is. Have you ever been like, I don't want to say hit on, but like flirted with, or like my friend, she's been asked to coffee multiple times by
Yes.
older guys, and I think it's really just like genuinely being like, "Oh, I just like to talk to you." They're lonely. It's a lonely
Yeah.
group of
No,
people.
definitely. Yes. A lot of, and then I always get, as soon as I tell them I was a Marine, they're like, oh, you know, and then they
Right.
start with all their like back in the day.
I
And
can
I'm
imagine that because I feel like we just get looks for being a female veteran, but being a female Marine, they're just like, whoa,
yeah,
whoa, you guys exist?
yeah. You're still around? What? Yeah, so
What?
then I get all the little like comments and stuff, and then I just don't know what to do after that. I'm just like,
Yeah, and I'll kick your ass. That's what you
yeah.
should start saying.
You know what, sir? You have a cane right now, and I don't, okay?
Right.
But it's true. Like sometimes it's like sometimes it gets to a point where like sometimes it's flattering, and then another point it's like, I don't know if I really like that comment,
Right.
like
Right. There's a lot of judgment
yeah.
going on. And yeah.
It's a hard thing to navigate sometimes, but it's
Mhm.
fun. Like, I don't know. It's a little of both, you know? So I don't know. I do miss uh being around all my military friends though, that's for sure. I miss that
Yeah.
camaraderie and just, it's just this
Yeah.
inside, yeah.
It's like the goofiness, it's the less seriousness that I don't know what it is, but yeah, I miss that since now we're like away from our like a lot where we moved from in Maryland. That's where my husband was stationed. So we met like a lot of friends in the military. Now we're away from them, and I'm just like, I miss them coming over and bugging us, or just yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My one of my good friends, he retired. His retirement party was 2 weekends ago. And that's the first time we've been around so many military people in a long time. And it's funny because I feel like I'm more, I don't even know what the word would be, but I still like that and I miss it, right? Like the military and veteran environment,
Mhm.
clearly, right? This is what I'm trying to do, like create a community. My husband is not, he's more reserved and stuff, and it's different, right? I feel like that was a lifetime ago for him, and that's okay. That was a life at a certain
Yeah.
point. That's not his life now. But we were at the party, and when we left, he's like, I forgot how much fun we had.
Mhm.
I mean, we had such a great time. And I was like, when we left, we had to leave early because I had to work the next day. But my husband was like, I forgot how much fun it was, and I was like,
Mhm.
see, I'm telling you. But yeah, it was just so fun. And yeah, like you said, it's like the silliness, the out of pocket stuff, like,
Right.
nobody says stuff like military members do, like, and no one gets offended. Everybody's like,
Right.
that was, like, oh, I got
Mhm.
that. We throw little jabs at each other, and it's just like,
Mhm.
whatever, and it's just a good time. It's like wholesome, genuine good time, And I saw people there from like that I hadn't seen for like ages, and it's like you just, it's like
You
there's no
can pick
loss
up
in time.
right where you
Yeah,
left off.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So anyway, that was awesome. And so I miss that. I think that's one of the best things that we have as veterans and military members, like that connection, and doesn't matter how far we are and how much time has passed, like we just, you know, we
Yeah,
have
we
that. Yeah,
we got that mutual understanding, like life's busy,
yeah,
and like we also understand how valuable time is
yeah,
because there's no point in being angry, like let's just work through this, let's get over it.
yeah. No, for sure. Definitely. Um, and so I wanted to ask you a couple of things. I, as you know, like I advocate for MST and MDV. I'm a survivor of both. I was a military spouse as well as a, service member. And so I experienced MST during my service time, and then I experienced military domestic violence as a spouse. And so that's where I'm trying to do the work and kind of open up the conversation, because I feel like for me, especially I mean, in '03, it's a lot different. I know a lot of things have changed, but not a lot of things have changed, right? And so I know for my time and as a spouse between, man, can't think, '04 to '07. Just things were a little were different, I feel like the service member, especially male, had a lot more backup than females did. Um, whether as service members and as spouses, right? And I felt like reporting was very difficult for both aspects. Um, because I tried, and they were just kind of like, oh, well,
Right.
you're gonna lose pay. He's gonna go to the brig.
Mhm.
That's what kind of, do you think that's what you really want to do? As far as the domestic violence, right?
Yeah.
The sexual trauma, I feel like, kind of the same thing. If you couldn't prove it, right, it was kind of
Mhm.
pointless. And then you had to deal with like the outing, right? Like now everybody knows your
Yeah.
business. Like, hey, she reported so and so, and now we got to go through this whole thing. Everybody has to know. And then usually the outcomes for that were not very positive, right? And so then
Mhm.
I think that it was more traumatizing to try. And so that's why so many of us just don't say anything. For me, that was my that was my response. I was like, you know what? I've already experienced a lot of negative things during my service time, trying to report other things, right? Not anything related to this. And I was kind of blown
Mhm.
off, minimized my situations. And I was like, imagine if I report this,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
So how do you feel those situations were dealt with during your service time?
Yeah, yeah, same thing. I didn't like reporting was not an option to me. Also in my case, and in most cases, like you're assaulted by one of your friends, someone you know, someone that you trust. And so this person told me, it was an accident. Like I would have never done that. It's a one-time thing. Like you want to believe them because you had trust in them. And a few years later, I found out he did it to someone else. He had raped one of my friends years later. So it was like, if I knew what I knew then, of course I would have reported. And then as soon as I found that out, I felt guilty. Like, if I would have reported, I should have, uh, then maybe this wouldn't have happened. So you have the guilt, like so many uh, people who survivors have that guilt. But yeah, like you, like it was someone I knew. I didn't even want to think about reporting. because I trusted them.
Yeah, no, I think I think what you said, like for me, I had a lot of guilt too because that night it happened to two of us, right? And so um I hold a lot of guilt because of that. And then after years later though, like once I was out and all that, I thought about it and I was like, dude, if he did that to us, two of us in the same room, the same night, like what is he doing out there right now? How many
Yeah.
more? And so I had even bigger guilt, like, man, I should have said something, and even
Mhm.
if I wasn't believed, like eventually he was gonna dig his own grave, basically, right? Because somebody else would report at some point, or and they'd be like, "Oh, we didn't believe her, but hey, there were signs or whatever."
Right, or
Um,
there was a previous report, like all things we
yeah,
think about.
yeah, but it's like you have that fear, and I think also, the problem is like the culture, right? I think it's such a to me, it's like a hard topic to talk about because I love the military culture in the positive sense, right? Like that togetherness, that family, like brothers, sisters, we ride or die for each other, literally.
Mhm.
I mean, we go to war together. We lose so many people, and not even just like active war, right? Like even we lose so many family military members. Uh, in the war of life afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Suicide, addiction, homelessness.
Mhm.
And so I think that we have such a beautiful community in so many ways, but that mentality also makes it difficult when somebody hurts us, for example, assaults
Yeah.
us, right? So it's like, how do I report my brother? He's my friend. He,
Yeah.
like we went through all of this together, and now I have to be the one that's gonna, you know what I mean? It's hard. Like
Mhm.
mentally, it's really difficult. And so part of that, I think part of that is also the problem, you know?
Mhm. Yes, yeah, absolutely. It's so much more than it's not a black and white issue of did you report or did you not? It's, I know what happens like to people who get kicked out of the military. It's a huge mark on you. And then you're thinking like, if they told me it was an accident, is that really worth to mess up their whole life? But in reality, like what they did messes with you your entire life.
Your life.
Yeah, yeah, it messes with yeah, and you just don't think about it then because, yeah, it was a messed up thing, like, but you don't understand the repercussions it has at that moment. You're scared or you think I'll get through this. It just affects us so many people differently. I don't blame anyone ever for not reporting because it is hard and it's hard to come forward. Actually, when I checked into my command at A school, there was an assault case going on, and it was a Navy guy against the Air Force. Like he committed a crime against this Air Force woman, and everyone was just going around our barracks. Like I said, it was Navy Marine barracks saying she's just crying rape. She has dick remorse. She was embarrassed that she slept with him, so she's saying she was raped. That's the narrative I was hearing in our barracks. But I mean, what actually happened, no one knows. But like, that's what I thought about women who reported because that's my first introduction to sexual assault in the military was that.
No, it's true though. I mean, it's absolutely true, you know, and I think that's why no one wants to speak on it and talk about it, because everybody's afraid of the judgment because that is the mentality and that is the the conversation, right? Like, oh, what did she do to ask for that? Oh, now she regrets it. Oh, she's a
Yeah.
hoe. Oh, she's this. Oh, she's that, and so then of course no one wants to speak up because you don't want to be that person, and then
Mm-hmm.
you don't and that doesn't go away, you know? That doesn't go away. But
Nope.
yeah, because the doubt is always there, right? And
Yeah.
so I don't know, it's just such a difficult, it's just it's a difficult issue. And I feel like I don't know if it's the fact that we have social media and now everything is like instantly out there, or that it's more prevalent now. But I feel like at this day and age, like, why is it still happening so consistently?
Yeah, and I think it's really like, this is a big comparison that people always bring up to me. "Oh, doesn't this happen in corporate America too?" Or, "Doesn't it happen just as much?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course it happens." But honestly, to the rate it happens in the military, it's not as close. Like, I'm not saying there's not sexual assault or that on college campuses. Of course there are. But in the military, it's so normalized. And, women are made to believe that like it's just a part of the culture. It's been like that for centuries, and women being a part of the military is fairly new compared to the whole history of war. So it's really a cultural issue, and it comes from the leadership down, leadership not wanting to talk about, and it's often pitted as a woman's issue when really it's a man's issue because men are the main people committing these crimes. It's sure, yes. And that's another argument people like to make is like, well, it happens to men too. And I'm like, yeah, like let's talk about it then. Like, I want to see more men talking about it and coming forward, and
Yes.
I want to see more men that like aren't I want to see more men as advocates in talking about this on their podcasts and addressing this issue because it seems like female veterans were the ones carrying it.
No, it's true. And I agree with that. I have been actually, I've reached out to a couple of male vets and asked if they would like to, give their 2 cents on
Yeah.
the subject, but they don't, and I mean, I can only assume, right? I don't know what to think of that, and I just feel like it is an issue for all of us,
Hmm.
because it affects all of our service members, and it affects our culture, and it affects how we function as a group, and we're supposed to lead and protect. And how are we leading and protecting when we're, you know, and assaulting each other? Like, what
Yeah.
how much
And
sense does that make?
it's
You know?
so disruptive in the command or the unit when a case happens. I mean, it affects everyone. It affects the whole climate of the company, whatever you're working in, the office. And it's like I wish we would talk about it. We trade war stories all the time, but why don't
Yeah.
we talk about this?
What about these? Yeah, no,
That,
absolutely. And of course, I mean, it's uncomfortable, I mean, it's not like we're out here trying to air out our business and be like, oh my God, let's all have, a camp. It's not even about that, but I think it's also like therapeutic. It's um it's humbling, right? Because I think for me, a lot of the time I felt like, why me? What was wrong with me? Why
yeah.
was I chosen? Like, and it's not even about me. It's about them, right? It's about them not being a good human being, of not having self-control, and about making poor choices, right? And so it
Hmm.
took a long time for me to be able to understand that,
Yeah.
and so I think that that is a common feeling that survivors have, and I think us talking about it helps us understand that it's not personal, right? That we didn't do anything wrong and none of us deserved it?
Yeah. Yeah. Shame. The shame, that was something I couldn't let go of, and it keeps us from talking about it. It really does, and it's hard. I mean, it took me like 6 years before I even reported it to the VA, like claimed it, because it was just like you don't want to admit that happened, and you don't want to talk about it with your peers. Um, yeah, I will say one thing. There are a few podcasts, and there are many men in the space that are willing to I bring it up as much as I can because it's a huge issue. And I brought it up last weekend. I was speaking at a very small town in a rural Pennsylvania, and oh shit, like this might not go over well. But honestly, like, I had to say it like that. It's a huge issue in our military, and I can't be quiet on it. But more people have been receptive and understanding about it and wanting to give me space to talk about it than that's it surprised me. So I will say I think we are heading in the right direction.
That's good. I'm glad because I think we need more of it. I feel like we've made a lot of strides. I think there's a lot, like I've said, the few people that I've had on the podcast so far, like I commend them for their bravery and their, willingness to come and open up to the world, and to share their experiences. And some that, I mean, they're all difficult to talk about, and so some that felt like uh they couldn't do it before, but they were able to do it now. I think that I don't know, and it holds a special place, to see someone break through that fear,
Hmm.
to speak up. And so yeah, you're right. I think a lot of us are working working hard to break down those barriers,
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
what do you think was the hmm, how did this event affect you the most? Like in what way? What do you think, what change did it cause in you?
Definitely my self-esteem. Um, I was always, a really confident person, and actually, it caught. I can't say it caused it to happen again, but MST is definitely a cycle where I started numbing myself with drinking more, and drinking became such a crutch to me, and which led it to put me in another situation with another person. So it really affected I I don't know what it didn't affect. It affected my performance, and when I reported it to the VA, they proved in my records like both or the events that happened were all correlated with my worst performance reviews. And yeah, focus, everything. It
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What advice do you think you would give a service member that has gone through something similar?
It's hard to know. Just like we were talking about earlier, like you're about to get out of the military, it's hard to know what you're experiencing at that time because you're just so in it. And you know something's wrong with you, but you can't place what it is. And especially like if you've gone through that, you don't want to admit to yourself that's what it is. You're willing to blame anything else because when you admit like my sexual assault is why I'm acting like this, it feels like you're giving power to that person. Like, oh, they did this to me, and then they're also affecting my life. Like, it feels like you're letting them win by admitting that. I definitely felt that, but you're not. You are someone who had a crime committed against you, and you deserve to all the resources, all the support and therapy, and it's okay. You're not giving them any more power. You're giving them power by staying in pain and confusion. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I agree with that. I feel like everything you said, something is wrong, but you don't know what it is. You're just not
Mhm.
quite yourself, but you don't get it. And you do blame it on everything and anything but that, and yeah.
I
That's
know.
absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, that
It's hard to
that
not
hit
get
home.
emotional talking
Yeah,
about this,
no,
like
that hit
even a bunch
home.
of tears.
I mean, you're right, and that's what I'm saying. Like, oh, I got you. That's what I'm saying, like the more we talk about it, the more we feel heard and understood, because that's
Hmm.
exactly what I felt like. You know, I was a super, same thing, super social, confident, outgoing person. And then after this, it was like, don't touch me, don't talk to me. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to be around anyone. And I just became miserable. Same thing, numbing myself with alcohol and putting myself in not good situations, and in retrospect, you're like, what's wrong with me,
Yeah.
um, and then you start blaming yourself, like, what am I doing wrong? I'm so stupid. Why am I drinking? I shouldn't have been drinking, or I
Mhm.
shouldn't have
I
gone
did.
there. I shouldn't have, I should have been whatever. You question everything you do. And you just become this shell of a person that's constantly questioning themselves, right? And all their decisions. And You don't realize how much that affects, I say, your mind, body, and soul. I say that experience shatters your soul. It
Mhm.
shatters the essence of who you are.
Yeah.
And when that is broken, before you start healing like that, it's really hard to see through that.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think everything you said was right on. Yeah, it was home. Yeah. So, uh, ah,
I
not
know,
all.
I know. And it it also, like, it affected me in ways, like, I was also, like, in a relationship when it happened, and it almost led me to cling to that relationship more because, like, he and it was a really bad relationship, but it was just like that was my only comfort, and I felt bad for that happening, so I didn't wanna speak out on it, and so yeah, just another way it led me to that, and then he started abusing me, and it was like, gosh, like, but at least he wasn't this person. It just
Yeah,
it messes with you so much, and again, like, I didn't think about any of this at the time. It took many years for it too, so anyone out there that's been through this, I'd just like to say, like, just because you thought of the situation, you dismissed it at one point, doesn't mean you can't go back and figure out, like, "Okay, yeah, that really did hurt me." I feel like it's hard for us to change that.
yeah, no, absolutely. I think, I think we all get to that point. No one can push us, right? We all get there at our own pace. Um,
Yeah.
but at some point we realize, like, you know, we're just trying to cover up the pain,
Mhm.
and so, yeah, I just hope, like, us talking about it will help others figure it out sooner rather than later. I feel like I did the same thing. I jumped into a marriage way too soon because I was just trying to cover up the pain, and I was
Mhm.
trying to, I was compensating, right? And so that's what I did, and I made a bad choice. It was a very abusive marriage. And then also I felt comfort. It was military, right? So it was like back into, I don't know, it was like somehow I was trying to prove something to myself.
Yeah.
And you know, and I
Mhm.
just made, it was a terrible choice that added to that trauma, being in an abusive marriage for 3 years, and then having a child with that person that only elongated that trauma for X amount of years. And so, yeah, you make bad choices. You try to compensate with other things. Um, and I feel like when you're not healed, you just make bad choices. You think they're the right choices, right? But you're making, uh, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like you're
It's
band-aiding yourself, you know?
yeah.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that getting married, that'll fix it. You know what?
Right.
I won't feel lonely. I'll feel loved. I'll feel validated. Let me just,
Mhm.
screw it. I don't think it's the greatest idea, but I'm gonna do it because that's gonna be the solution. And then you get there, and you know what? Having a baby, you should do that. That's gonna
It'll
fix
fix
it.
everything.
It will bring happiness. And then you do that and you're like, shit. And so, I mean, for me, that was kind of the road that I took, and then Anyway, and it just it spirals. And then I left that situation and I got into drinking and then, and it's just like band-aid after band-aid, but those
Mhm.
band-aids are only creating more problems.
Right. And it's almost like a distraction after a distraction. You're
Yes.
keeping your mind busy with this next thing so you don't have to look backwards. You don't have to deal with that.
You don't have to think about it. And
Um,
yeah, yeah, and be accountable for your actual feelings and
yes.
emotions. Yeah.
Right. Like, because we're not responsible for what happened to us, but we are responsible for ourselves and
Mm,
how we heal. And
yeah.
that's hard to hear for a lot of people, but
Yeah.
it really is true.
It's true. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us, and I appreciate you giving some honest advice because I know it's hard sometimes to try to guide others that are going through similar situations because it's not always what we want to hear, right? So I appreciate that. And before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you. Um, what is the advice you would give younger vets?
I would give younger veterans so much advice. Oh my gosh, I could write a whole novel on it. But really, the big thing I like to say is it's okay to feel lost. It's okay to feel like you don't know what's next because people are still asking you, "What's next? What are you doing now?" It's okay to not have your next mission figured out, your next purpose that will come. But make sure that you have community you can reach out to. Make sure you have a support system in place, and just let those around you know, like, hey, this is like getting out of the military. It's a tough time for a lot of veterans. Check in on me once in a while, uh, because I don't want to be a statistic. You can leave it as simple as that because I know it's hard to be vulnerable, but just say that I don't want to be a statistic. Check in on me, and then that goes to say for anyone else, if you know someone who got out of the military, like check in on them. They will appreciate it, and like we talked about earlier, it doesn't matter how long it's been. Like we love to hear from each other.
Yes, I love that. That's yes, 100%. Let's check in on each other. I think that's the best thing we can do. Like a quick little text, freaking a little Instagram message, DM, whatever, right? Just real quick, check in. Takes a couple of seconds. We're all stuck to our phone anyway, right?
Yep.
And sometimes that's all you need. I will say, like, sometimes I'll be having a really bad day and someone will be like, "Hey, friend, I haven't, how are you?" And I'm just like, I was about ready to lose my shit that day. And that one message is like, "Oh my God, hey." And it just makes it better. Believe
Yep.
me, it's true. And um, yeah, I agree. We all have our good days. We all have our bad days, no matter how long we've been out, no matter how old we are. And I think that's true. So let's try to reach out and be more connected, even if it's just a quick little hi and a little emoji wave,
Yeah.
and make somebody's day because sometimes some days are worse than others for us. And
Yep.
yeah. And so I want to thank you for being here with us today. I so appreciate you and I appreciate everything you do. I'm going to order your journal or the workbook. I'm going to order the workbook and work on it with my husband together. And then I'm going to let you know how that goes because I'm kind of
Yeah.
excited.
Let me
Yeah.
know.
And then, like I said, I love all your content. I love the questions. I love the responses. Like, I love all of that. So, you're doing such an awesome job. I admire you for that. And for the rest of you, thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure to know that you guys are tuning in, watching, and listening. Remember to make moto moves, drink your celery juice, and I will catch you guys later. Bye.